Aboro, Aboye, Abosheshe, and Ekobo. Welcome to another live stream of the Ifa Orisha tradition discussion program. As usual, before I begin, I open with an Oriki. So here goes. Open Nifun Olurun, Oludumare Oba Ajiki, Mojiloni, Mo Ogun Meriaye, Iba Ila Orun, Iwo Orun, Iba Riwa, Iba Gusu, Iba Oba Igba Aye, Iba Orun Oke, Iba Baba, Iba Yeye, Iba Atiwo Orun, Iba Ashé, Igungun Kiki, Igungun. Ashé, Ashé, Ashé. All right. Today, we are going to have a very interesting topic. We're going to have a topic that has been a controversial topic for quite some time. And when I say for quite some time, I mean since the very early development of our tradition of Ifa Orisha. The subject tonight is Esu. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the writings of two figures that has contributed in some way to the discussion concerning Esu. All right. The first person I'm going to read is a gentleman by the name of George E. Simpson. Mr. Simpson wrote a book by the name of the Shango Cult of Trinidad, West Indies. All right, this same gentleman also did extensive research on Yoruba tradition. He studied and observed and interviewed and recorded in several countries, including Brazil and Nigeria. All right, so on his Trinidad leg, he came here in the 1960s, or in 1960 to be exact. And he was here from January up until December of 1960. During that time, what he did in order to get the material for his book is he visited, interviewed, as well as record 5 Shango Baptist churches, as well as 5 Shouta Baptist churches. So in all, he was able to visit these 10 groups where he was able to speak with people, as well as he had an opportunity to observe many of the practices and the activities that took place in these churches. All right. So for persons who are new to the tradition, right, you must understand this is a very important piece of our history. Right? Because back in the 60s, we are not saying that there may not have been straight Orisha shrines. There may have been a few. But to a large extent, a lot of what we know today that we inherited from our ancestors was protected and secured in the Shouta Baptist Church, in the Shango Baptist yards and churches, as well as to some extent the spiritual Baptist churches. All right. So with that background and backdrop, I'm going to start reading what was written in this book by this gentleman in 1960. This book, I think, is out of print at the moment. So it's something very difficult to get your hands on. But I was fortunate enough to secure a copy of this book that I could use in order to be able to provide the information that I have tonight to present. All right. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read from page 100, the third paragraph of the publication of the book called The Shango Cult of Trinidad. And after that, I'm going to read from another book, right, that was written by Dr. Abosede Emmanuel. The title of his book is Odun Ifa, or the subtitle is Ifa Festivals. This gentleman was a Christian minister who investigated the tradition, of course, for the reason to convert the Yoruba people to Christianity. But strangely enough, he ended up being the one converting. All right? So I'm going to read these two pieces of information, and then I'm going to try to discuss a few main points in closing off. All right? This is page 100, the third paragraph. It says, we have mentioned elsewhere, all right, and this is Simpson on one of his documents that was done in 1962, all right, on page 1204. We mention that Frobenius, who is another author who wrote material in 1913. So these are very, very old research. All right, I bid the page 229 in his document. He observed that black and white Christian missionaries, I inserted the word Christian because when we hear missionaries, we might be thinking there are all type of religious missionaries, but the missionaries he is speaking about is Christian missionaries. To the Yorubas had created misunderstandings concerning Esu by making him the equivalent of Satan. All right? He was told that while Esu played many tricks, this Òrìṣà is not evil, and that he has brought the sun, the Ifa oracle, and the best of all there is. Bascom, in his book in 1944 on page 38, regards Esu as a messenger of the Òrìṣà. All right. Parinda, which is another author, in his material in 1949, all right, I bid page 67 and 68, as well as another publication he did in 1953, I bid 30 and 31, which would be the pages 30 and 31 from his material. He found that Esu may be used to protect from danger or to cause harm to others. All right? A syncretism is seen in the belief. This here now is George Eaton talking about his observation. He says a syncretism is seen in the belief and ritual associated with Esu in the Shango cult in Trinidad. He says Esu is paired with Satan, and many devotees believe that he is capable of only evil deeds. Some informants, of course this is from his interviews, some informants hold that Esu can perform good deeds as well as evil acts. But these persons advised against staying on too friendly terms with him, which is Esu. All right? At the beginning of a Shango ceremony, Esu's food, a calabash of ashes, a calabash of water, is brought into the pali when one or more songs are sung and sung asking him to leave the ceremony. All right? And then the two calabashes are taken outside of the ritual area and emptied, symbolizing the dismissal of Esu. All right, and that ends the quote coming from Mr. Eaton and his book. All right, I just wanted to note one thing here. All right, he quoted 3 different authors, and then he spoke about what his observation is while he was here in Trinidad in 1960. All right, now the issue of Esu being Satan has been very popular in Ifa circles within recent times. But it seemed that this misconception has always, well, not always, but has existed because of the influence of Christianity. Because many of the early authors were in fact either Christians or came from a Christian background. So let me go on now to read from the book Odun Ifa, or Ifa Festivals by Dr. Abosede Emmanuel, which was published in the year 2000. All right. On page 175, he wrote, "Since before the Iron Age, Esu as the protector of the tongue and home. He was known as the protector of the tongue and home. For this reason, Esu's images is usually placed at the tongue's gate, in front of the home, and at the crossroads. The picture below illustrates, pass me them 2 book chart to show the picture. The picture below illustrates his main features. Note the hook-like excrescence backward from the occiput, all right, which we refer to as the ipako, that is the back of the head, all right. This ipako is also called an Ogo Esu, all right. And what is interesting is the definition when translated from Yoruba to English of what the word Ogo mean. All right, I want to show you the image of Esu. Do you see it? What you are seeing behind his head sometimes is carved as braids, okay? But that is a protrusion that is coming from a part of his head where you would see some people have a little lock or a long hair right here on one spot behind. That particular spot in Yoruba is Ogo. The word Ogo translates in English to glory, honor, top, and it also symbolizes to a wooden toy. All right? But we're going to talk some more about Esu and his relation to toys. All right? Now, the same word Ogo also means one placed at a debtor's house to compel payment from him, or a pledge. All right? Now, the author continues to write. He says, the occiput extends. There is the symbol of Esu's ability to see behind himself with the same acuity as his eyes in front. So, of course, many words would come to mind, like the word omniscience. When it talks about him being placed to make sure somebody pay their debt, the term salvation will come in mind. When it talks about crossroads, the term cross comes to mind. When it talks about him being a protector, there would be things that would come to one's mind when one thinks of God and divinity. All right, but let me continue reading. The occiput extends is there to symbolize Esu's ability to see behind with the same acuity that he sees in front. All right, and as I said, that reminds us of a characteristic called omniscience. All right, the author says this, like the Roman god Janus, Esu was credited with foresight and hindsight, so that his image assured protection by foreseeing danger emanating from any direction and diverting it elsewhere. Alright? Note the necklace with pendants of cowries symbolizing Esu's dispensation of wealth, or his ability to give wealth. Alright? Also, note also the object in his left hand. That is Ashé. Alright? Esu's potent repository of words and acts of magical wonders. Alright? So the idea of Esu having the ability to work miracles, to create wonders, to give wealth, and to meet the needs, the every needs of persons, would also bring to mind, in religion, deities that are able to do these things. Alright? So Esu's potent repository of words and acts of magical wonders. Finally, note the characteristic, the facial marks on Esu. Alright? Because he has these tribal marks. These marks, facial marks, are of Ketu, a city mythically reputed to have been founded in ancient times by Esu. The name of the town was Ketu. Right? The myths say that he was the king or the creator of that town. And I want to share something that may surprise a couple of people. The term Ketu is spelled Ketu. That same word Ketu was anglicized and spelled Cateau, and it was further anglicized to the name Cato or Kato, which is Keto. And up till today, in Trinidad, as well as in Nigeria and other parts of the world wherever our people are found, there are people who carries the name Keto or Kitu. But the anglicized version, of course, is Keto. So now I'm going to also share something from all that we've read about Esu, particularly where Mr. Abosede is concerned, Emmanuel. Esu represents a protector. He represents the cross. He represents salvation when they talk about the person guarding to ensure that people pays whatever debt. Because what we call salvation is the payment of the debt for our sins and our natural ability to do wrong. Esu is also mentioned as being omniscient, being able to see front and back. Right? He's also able to avert negativity that is coming your way. Right? Now, Esu, the said Esu, also have the ability to meet your every need, and the symbol of the cowries around his neck symbolizes his ability to give wealth. Okay? Of course, which would remind you of blessings that people receive from God. Right? Also, the power of words. Esu is known to be the great communicator. This is why he takes messages to the divinities on our behalf, because he could communicate well. And not only could he communicate well, but because Olodumare gave him Ashé, his words have the ability to create miracles and magic. So when we hear about miracles and magic, we think of religion, and we also think of divinity. And now I'm going to give you another thing. Beside Keto, the name Keto or Kitu, there is also another factor that we must look at. We're going to look at the name Jesus. J-E-S-U-S. Alright? The first thing I'm going to tell you about the name is if you were to drop the last S and you were to drop the J, because there is no J in Hebrew. So in reality, there is no one named Jesus. There is no John, there is no Joseph, there is none of those. Because there was never a J. J came into the English language in the 1600s. Alright, so when you drop the J from Jesus, you end up with E-S-U-S. And then when you drop the S, you end up with E-S-U, which is Esu. The said Esu that we have spoken about. We've described his characteristics. Protector. We talk about him at the crossroad. Okay, Jesus is a protector. The cross is the symbol associated to Jesus. Jesus gives salvation because we talk about Esu ensuring that the penalty or the price is paid to people based on their actions. We also talk about him being omniscient, being able to see in front and see behind, see in the future and see in the past. All of this is tied into Esu as well as to Jesus. We talk about Jesus being able to work miracles. We talk about Jesus being able to just tell people things and their lives change. When he was teaching, the woman who had a sick daughter at home came to him and told him, Master, my daughter is sick. And he said, well, ma'am, be it unto you, let the child be healed. And when she got home, her daughter was well. Esu is given that Ashé by Olodumare. So, all of these characteristics is not only associated to Esu, but is also associated to Jesus. This is just something to think about. All right, and not only do we find this archetype in the Ifa Orisha cosmology, all right, and we happen to find it in Christianity in Jesus, but among the Norse people, there is a character called Loki, who has the same characteristics also of Esu. All right. We also have among the Napi people, or what we call the Blackfoot tribe, they know the same character as Napi among the Blackfoot. Okay. Among the Miwok tribe, they are familiar with him by the name, is it Loyote or Coyote? Loyote. All right. He's known as Coyote, or what we know as a coyote. All right. To the people who are called the Hagones, to the people who are called the Seneca people, the same archetype is also known as Hagones. All right. Now, he is also known as Kokopelli, and that name, Kokopelli, has been seen carved into rocks across the Americas that are some 3,000 years old. All right. So I'm saying all of this to say the significance of the archetype that we identify as Esu has existed in all cultures and all civilizations. So it is not a new concept, right? But among our people, because we were cut off from our tradition for a long time, there are many things that we have lost. And we have lost the knowledge of these things. But because of our interaction with many of the indigenous people, we have been able to identify in their practices with a great measure of respect that their practices are somewhat similar and relevant to our own cosmology and life experiences. So this will only lead one to wonder and to think, what really is this? Is it that we all come from one tradition, from one family, and at one time had one practice and lived closely to each other, respectfully? Well, if that is so, which is something we should think about, then I think because of the knowledge that we have acquired from listening and communicating with our neighbors who are different to ourselves, that we should come together. We should respect each other. We should love each other, as this, I believe, is what Olodumare has intended and the Creator. Ifa offers us a cosmological viewpoint that might be somewhat different to others, but yet, if we take a deep look at it, we may see that it is similar. All right? There are 8 essences of Ifa. And if we were to study all of these essences, then we would discover that Ifa basically covers everything in life and all the realities. We do not consider what we practice a religion per se, right? But the aspect of our tradition that falls into the category of what we call religion is very minute, because what we practice encompasses a lot more than just the religion. So one of the 8 essences is the religious essence. So we recognize religion as a small aspect of our tradition. All right? So basically, with that ends today's stream. There have been discussions about Esu being the devil and all this thing, and no, we know Esu is not the devil. We also know that all the Himalayas, the Orishas, and the divinities, we ascribe to them mainly positive characteristics. But if the Orishas once lived as men, it would mean they would have both qualities. So, the most benevolent deity, if provoked, if angered, if disrespected, can show an aspect of themselves that may not be beneficial for us to see or taste. All right, and with that, I've presented Esu, who we know in our cosmology to be a protector, a giver of wealth, the one who opens the pathway for us, the one who allows us to be able to function with the mental clarity, because we understand the crossroad to mean a point of decision. If you're going left, if you're going right, if you're going forward, if you're going backward. That is what the crossroad represents to us. In the physical material world, the crossroad represents the 4 elements, which is fire, water, earth, and air. And all of the basic primordial energies are sub-combinations of the 4 elements. This is what Ifa teaches us. All right? So I would like to close on that note. And these are many, many things that we could look at and think about, because these are the things that governs our life. These are the things that motivates us towards achieving the things that we have to achieve, and to facing each day with hope and with a positive outlook. All right? With that, I would like to remind everyone, you do good for yourself. You do bad for yourself. All right? And by that, I mean, let us learn to live in love, and let us learn to consider others as much as we consider ourselves. These are the things that would make the world a better place. We call it Iwa Rere, and we also call it Omoluabi. All right, these are the terms we use, but they amount to us being able to treat others quite well as we would like others to treat us. All right, and with that, I would like to say Odabo, and may the Most High bless you, bless your family, bless your extended family, your community, and may He bless us as a nation. Odabo, and see you next week.